Hello, welcome to this month's April Q&A. Thanks. A few more questions this month. This year, that's real good. I hope these answers kind of enlighten you. I don't know, we'll see. I really, guys, great questions. Keep them coming. This is actually becoming very fun. I look forward to this each month. So we're going to start with DM Dave. So after Sun Tzu's Art of War is done, are you planning on using another famous tactician and explain how to use his tactics on the tabletop? I told you that hands down watching those has made me a better player at war games and can't wait to see where you take that from there. Well, funny you should ask. Yes and no. Sun Tzu was one of the series, one of the topics I was going to cover. I actually have quite a few now. There is going to be a slight break between the Sun Tzu series and another series I'm going to start. I'll tell you in a second. Because there are some concepts I actually want to illustrate first. I was hoping to do the Sun Tzu one first to kind of level set for everyone. Because, here, I'll admit, I'm a nobody coming onto the YouTube scene. And here I'm telling you guys about tactics. Where's this guy coming from? What does he know? He has all his books around. Great. That doesn't mean a whole lot, right? So I figured if I could demonstrate through, Sun Tzu and how, I have some understanding, just give myself some credibility. When I do this, what I'm about to start, you guys might understand a little better where I'm coming from, and that there's some knowledge behind what I'm going to suggest. Because some of the things I may recommend might not sound typical what you might hear from some gamers, tactics, whatever. So before we get into another series, what I'm going to try to do is 2 or 3 different videos that are going to showcase particular concepts, military concepts. One of them that I want to do is area denial, and another one is fields of fire. Now, those concepts, there's a lot to it, and we sometimes take it for granted, and we think we understand it, but there's a lot of things around it that we might not realize. So I wanted to cover those 2. But then, yes, after those 2, I'm planning on doing another series, and I'm really looking forward to this one. This is almost a sentimental one because one of the first books on strategy I ever read was by Liddell Hart, and it's called Strategy. And I actually want to do the next series on his 8 maxims. So you might want to go ahead and take a look at some of Liddell Hart's writings. Just give yourself an idea, get caught up to speed on that. But that's the next one. Now, he's not the only one that's going to come. I'm actually planning on doing some series based on actual field manuals, military manuals. So there's military theory published by the armed forces, and it's in their, it's in their how-to books. It's like their training books, right? And so we can go through, platoon tactics, platoon operation, and walk through how do those real-life concepts translate to tabletop. Same kind of deal. So yes, there will be videos that are specific one-offs on particular tactical concepts, but there will be more series coming. The next one will be Liddell Hart, and hopefully they'll probably start, based on the rate we're covering the rest of Sun Tzu, probably be June, or end June we'll start Liddell Hart. Okay, I hope I can get myself another copy of his book. I really enjoyed it. I don't have a copy of his. It was one my history teacher in high school had. And I think I read it twice, so that was when I was in high school, though. All right, so that's what's coming, Dave, so hope you're going to enjoy those. All right. Now, from IDICBeer, 40K. He's, yes, great answers, my friend. You're doing a sterling job with your videos. Questions for you next time. What are your least favorite 40K armies and why? And what takeaway food do you like best? Okay, interesting pair of questions. The first one, what's my least favorite 40 army case? I'm going to answer in 2 ways, okay? One, my absolute worst hated army ever is Nurgle. And it's the only reason is it's gross. Okay, I have absolutely I've done first aid for. I've no problem dealing with blood and injury and stuff like that, but sickness and illness that grosses me out. I don't like zombie movies because it's gross. I just can't. Ugh. Now, war movies, and Band of Brothers, legs getting blown off. That's no problem. I haven't seen that in person, but I've seen blood. I've seen serious injury. No big deal. Well, relatively speaking. Gross, icky, pus-filled, disgusting. No, so Nurgle right out. Hated, never. But as far as the least favorite army from a playing perspective, playing against, I think would probably have to be, I think, the different demon armies. Mostly because there's so much variety in what can be brought. The tactics available to your opponent are extremely diverse. And the the abilities available to your opponent, you really never know. It's hard to prepare yourself to face a demon army because you don't really know exactly what you're getting into. So that's the reason. Now, I'll leave it at that. Now, as far as takeaway food, that's a good question. I never really thought about it much, but I guess favorite is kind of maybe the wrong word. It's not like I crave it, but I can't help but over here in the U.S. we got Taco Bell, and I know it's not top of most people's list, but it's a comfort food kind of thing. Just something very reassuring. I had it when I was in college. When I was poor, broke, and it was cheap, so I had a lot of meals that way. And so I kind of have a soft spot for that. I every so often I get a craving for that. So that would have to be my favorite takeaway food. I will do that. All right. So thanks, Dick. All right, next one from John Pierce. Okay, you guys might know him as a Joker in different bat reps. Okay, so he's got a few of them here. Now, what is your favorite army and why is it the Tactician Armored Company? Then he asks what he calls his real questions. First is, what is your favorite gaming accomplishment, be it on the tabletop or hobbying? And then it seems that many armies are being built around certain powerful formations, like the Battle Company or Tau Stealth Cadre. What are your thoughts on the proliferation of formations in the 40K army lists? So, let's start with the very first one. What's my favorite army and why is it the Tactician Armored Company? Well, the Tactician Armored Company is actually one of my favorite ones to fight against. I don't know what it is about fighting an armored battle. There's just something fun about it. And I never, ever tire of doing that. I don't care whether I win or lose, I just want more of it, So that's why I love facing your armored Tactician Company, okay? As far as what is my favorite army in general, that's a tough one, really, because I'd have to say it really has to be my Tau from the way it plays. It's a playstyle I can relate to. Very much shooting focused. It's all about technology and tactics. I don't use the modern formations, the new formations they've got, and I do not and will never use the Ghost Keel or Storm Surge. I don't like point and click units. I like units that require me to think and plan and actually have some synergy to effectively run it. Kind of like the old Eldar were before they became really OP. So, my favorite gaming accomplishment, honestly, it might not seem like much, but that I wrote that one scenario. I think I called it Wrong Place at the Wrong Time. Dave and I were playing his Harlequins against my, it was a 500-point match against my, some mechanized infantry. And we were going through that forest table, and that, I think, was my favorite accomplishment personally, because it was a culmination of my story writing that I love to do and my tactical thinking. I mean, it was definitely a very challenging scenario for both of us. You know, it wasn't favoring any one side. We each had advantages and strengths, but it was really a fun. It turned out to be a fantastically fun game, and I just felt fantastic about that. That I think is my favorite accomplishment, if you will. So, now, as far as the powerful formation stuff, yeah, I don't like that stuff. I completely get the formation concepts, and I really did like the idea of the Decurion style detachment. Because it really helps the player stick with the narrative, the fluff of the army. You know, I think it makes a lot of sense. The battle company, it's perfectly logical. It's the way it should. That's the way a Space Marine army should look on the field. Decurion, same way. I'll go into Necrons later. I'm going to have a video about building Necron armies based on narrative instead of power gaming like that. Like the Stealth Cadre. Now, that's with the Ghost Keel and the Stealth suits, and that's just where it falls apart isn't the formation itself and the mix of units. It's the special rules you all of a sudden get. There is no reason the Tau Hunter contingent should get an extra +1 to Ballista skill just because it's part of this formation. Yeah, I can see maybe extra marker light hits from a Pathfinder unit because of the support that's supposedly flying overhead. But not +1 Blitz skill on everything, or add a bunch of units together, all firing at one same target, can all share the marker light. It's just, no, that's ridiculous. Free transports to all your Space Marine units, that's ridiculous. That could be a 10% or more increase in number of points. You get a 2,000 point army with 200 extra points of vehicles against a 2,000 point army. That doesn't seem right, you know. So I think they went the wrong direction. The formations were a good idea, but I think that one aspect of the free benefits and the free bonuses that were killing, really overpowered, that I think kind of ruined it. So had they maybe given it a point cost, so that it was actually cost you something to have the formation, okay. But I kind of like the staying back with the different type of combined arms detachments. That gets you most of what you need. And I'm a fluff player. I do try to make the most competitive fluff list I can, but I am a fluff player, and so I just don't like seeing the fluff turn to overpowerness. So, all right, so that's what's that. Okay, now Inquisitor Jones. Okay, do you know the story of the USS Salt Lake City Battle of Komandorski Islands? And what is the favorite book behind you? Okay, 2 questions. The first one is, I do now. Okay, I had a general understanding, and I had read different things about the different battles related to the Aleutian Islands campaign, and I do remember, reading about this naval battle. For those of you who don't know, the USS Salt Lake City was a cruiser that was part of a battle. It was part of a fleet of 4 destroyers and 2 cruisers that went up against what was supposed to be a few destroyers and a cruiser on the Japanese side, trying to come in and drop supplies to the Japanese that were in the Aleutian Islands, trying to get a foothold in Alaska for some reason. Well, it turned out that due to a miscommunication, it turned out that the Japanese fleet was a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier, and we were kind of outmatched. So it was a really interesting battle. I do think you guys should look it up and read it for yourself, but you can even see dice rolls at play there. At one point, the Americans decided to charge forward, press the attack home, basically providing the narrowest target to the opponents to get their shots in, evading, as much as they can, zigzagging to avoid fire. The Japanese are zeroing in on their on the lead cruiser, cruiser of the Salt Lake City, and guess what? Just about when they got the ranges marked perfectly, one of the guys accidentally kills the power to weapons direction system. It's like, so saved the lives of a bunch of naval men on that ship. Didn't get the barrage. Some daring torpedo attacks from some destroyers against the Japanese, and the Japanese kind of giving up what I would consider early, not pressing the fight as much as they could have. Very interesting battle. Research it and see what you guys think. But it's kind of interesting to want to listen or learn about these lesser known aspects of battle, and one of the reasons I like doing that is it gives me ideas for scenarios. Obviously, there's not a whole lot we can do in the naval space in 40K, but I do that a lot with the land battles and try to get ideas for my 40K scenarios. So what is my favorite book behind you? That's not a fair question. That's like asking which of my kids is my favorite. There's a lot of them that I really like. If I did have to narrow it down to just one book, well, that's really hard to do. But I think if I had to, you're really putting me on the spot. See, all these books are here for a different reason. I've studied a lot of German Luftwaffe history, and I used to be really, really big into World War II aircraft, air combat. I don't want to get involved with some of the games now simply because it's more money, more time, right? So that's where those are from. This book here is an encyclopedia of military history. This goes back to Sargon, all the way back to Sargon, and all the battles from then forward, just kind of summaries of what was going on. But I think this would have to be my favorite, The Face of Battle. Now, it's kind of a strange story. This is actually, wow, $4.95. Okay, that's a cheap book. This is from the 80s. Okay, this is quite. I was in high school when I got this book. This was a textbook for me in high school. The class was Classic Conflicts, and we studied Agincourt, Waterloo, and the Somme using this. And John Keegan is a very well-known military historian, and he's very eloquent. I don't mean flowery, but he's really able to communicate to normal people on this whole military topic. And in this book, it dissects each of the battles from the perspective of the different units involved. So, Agincourt, for example, what was it like man-to-man, cavalry, knight to knight, archer to knight, men-at-arms to knight, whatever. What was it like in the supply train area? What was it like when the warriors got dismounted? What was the weather effect? When we got into Waterloo, what was the effect of artillery on infantry, horse on infantry, infantry on a horse, artillery on horse? What are the different psychological impacts? And because it spans the time of medieval warfare all the way through modern World War I, you really get to see the progression of warfare and the effects. And it goes through a lot of aspects, not just the tactical ones, tactical considerations, but the psychological and physical effects of battle. And not necessarily on the individual, but on the individual as well as the unit and the campaign as a whole. So this, I think, is my favorite book if I had to. Yeah, if I had to be stranded on a desert island with only one book, I think this would be it. So, yeah. I hope the rest of my books don't feel bad about that. But yeah, that's my favorite book, I guess, back there. Okay? All right, the next one, the last one here. Question is, what race or faction in the 40K universe is your favorite and why? Keep up the great work. Okay. Keep up the great walk, actually. Okay. Here's the thing. I'm going to treat this question slightly different than John's about what my favorite army is, right? Because my favorite army to play is the Tau, because it feels so right. It's just, I don't know. I answered that already. This is the favorite faction race. So I'm taking this as a bigger question. And this one has to boil down to the Eldar, but specifically the Exodites, if you hadn't noticed already. Because really, there's two aspects. I'm going to just go from the the obvious one that you may have already picked up on, which has been, I absolutely love doing conversions. And I get these very creative ideas about how to bridge the gap between the modern or futuristic weaponry that the Eldar have and these beasts, the dinosaurs they ride. And I love the modeling aspect, the conversions, the painting of those units. I just like bringing those to life. So that's the easy why. But there's another why that I like, and it has to go along the lines of the storyline. It's the fluff, the Exodite fluff. This faction, or portion of the Eldar faction, at one time, kind of saw the direction that the race was going, and as their depravity grew, and they decided that they were going to distance themselves from that, and maybe not suffer the same fate when the society collapsed. Because none of them knew what was really going to happen, but they knew at least their society was going to collapse. So they wanted to maintain their culture, but they wanted to make sure that all the benefits that they had from all their technology and the simplification of life didn't interfere again like it did in the past. They go back to a more rustic lifestyle. Now, I'm very much an outdoorsman. I love camping, canoeing, fishing, hiking, archery. I love all this stuff. And I love the great outdoors. And the thought of these Eldar kind of going back to a more rustic lifestyle, essentially being futuristic elves, even to the point where the Exodite fluff uses bows and crossbows with psychically charged arrows. I thought, this is great. I wish there was an army for this. And so I love the thought and the concept of this whole segment of a race abandoning their home world to try to preserve what they could of their society. And I kind of look at the Exodite, with the exception of their technology side, as kind of what's left of the original Eldar civilization, as far as the organization and the government structure and all that kind of stuff. Now, as part of that, there was a huge challenge that I really enjoyed trying to tackle. And it's one of the reasons I'm kind of sad that maybe there's a 40K rewrite may mess this up, is I had a blast trying to look at each individual unit in the various fan codexes for the Exodites and try to marry them up with an Eldar or Dark Eldar, and eventually Tyranid unit entry. And then I realized that there are other units in those three codexes that I could kind of create my own interpretation on. So I loved that aspect of taking a unit entry in one of those three codices and saying, well, what would it look like in an Exodite army? And then just my mind would go wild, come up with ideas, and I made it happen. And so you see the Exodite army in my studio for reviews. So that's the best way to answer your question. The Exodite Eldar would be a favorite, and those are the three reasons: the modeling, the fluff history, and the challenge of creating units that are specifically Exodite but use the rules of the current codexes. So, all right. So those are the questions for this month. I thank you all for submitting these. This has been a blast answering. So if you want more questions answered, comment below and let me know what they are. We'll see you again in May. All right. Take care. Enjoy your gaming. Bye.